Appreciate everyone for making the time to hop on here. Again, this is our security advisory webinar series. What we're trying to do here is work with our clients and our partners and just kind of talk through current trends, active things we're seeing in the market, without kind of the marketing speak, but more specifically along the lines of what Quest is seeing as a managed service and MSSP, and how we're helping clients through evolving threats. If you joined us when we initially hopped on here, Mike and I were talking about, hey, let's get ready to rumble. This is, active, very, very active scenarios in the cybersecurity landscape. Things are changing all the time. And we're going to get into some of the things that we're seeing in the marketplace, really around, how security is, how notifications are coming and how things are being alerted and how clients are managing their environments. So got a couple topics to go through today. Like Paul mentioned, if there are any questions, if you have anything you want to follow up on, please enter that information in the chat. We got Darcy, who's our VP of Marketing, online here. Paul's going to be managing the chat window, and we'll have follow-ups for any specific questions you may have on any topics covered today. So again, thank you very much for joining the forum. We're going to jump right into it with CTO Mike Dillon. So Mike, I know as we were kind of prepping for this one, going through things, we kind of listed out like the current concerns, and something that we were sharing with our operations team and our support team and our sales and our partners is something around, hey, critical vulnerabilities aren't something that are going away. They're happening all the time, and it's kind of a constant environment that's changing at all times with all the different software packages and all the different providers out there that are tied in with our customers and our partners. So, wanted to chat through a couple recent examples that we are seeing, as well as a little bit around, okay, this is what happens now. How does Quest as an MSP address that, or how do we work with our customers to make sure they're aware of what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, they're not going away. Matter of fact, I think we're getting more and more of them. I think every software, hardware vendor out there, SaaS provider, whatever it is dealing with their systems being vulnerable. How do they report? How do they rank them? Of course, you'll see the criticals being, 0 to 10, 10 being the highest. What's the difference between an 8.3 and a 9.3 and a 7.3? Does it impact me? What do I have to do with it? I mean, there is just streams and streams of information out there that comes at people, and sometimes you almost get tired of seeing it. You're like, another one of these CVs. So they're definitely not ending, and they're probably getting more of them. And how do you deal with them? So how do we handle it? So we handle it. We use some of the services. So there's a lot of services out there that will stream you everything that you want to know about whatever on vulnerabilities. There are regulatory type of companies or groups like CISA. There's those folks that are sending out critical information too. So it's coming at us from multiple different directions: the vendors, the security experts, the regulatory type of teams telling us, what's happening. And by the way, I think some of them have gotten a lot better. I mean, there's definitely, when there's a threat that people recognize, see, react to, we're getting better at communicating what those mean. Some of your current MDR, EDR tools, SIM tools, those things may get tied to some of those threat streams too. So they may come into you and tell you some sort of message. But again, it's not getting smaller. More and more people are understanding that they got to tell people more about these too. Maybe if you go back 5 or 10 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago or something, people didn't really want to talk about it. They're like, well, maybe I won't bring it up. Maybe I just don't say anything until something bad happens. Well, that's burnt some people. That's burnt some cloud providers. That has burnt some vendors. Like, no, when you start seeing something, and some of these folks have to tell, tell people within a certain amount of time if they do see systems that have been compromised too. So regulatory, like requirements have really helped out there too, besides just letting people know. So it isn't necessarily people want to hide this information now anymore. So people are sharing it more. And then what do you do with it? How do you handle it? How does it apply to me? And on a couple of these examples that we put up here, so how we handle it, we're tapped into all of those streams. You can't imagine all the different streams that we get tapped into, and then we got to apply that to number one, our customers' environments that we have visibility to, that Quest has visibility to. How do those critical vulnerabilities apply to them? So in a case of Veeam or SonicWall, when those critical events or those critical messages start to come through, we have to look at our customers, take the information, do scanning of our client platforms, the ones that we have visibility to, and see if they apply. It's not going to do you any good to go out and talk to a bunch of people about Oracle if they don't have Oracle. It's not going to do any good to go talk to a bunch of people about Veeam things if they don't have Veeam. So when we see these coming through, we want to be able to have that visibility into our customers' environments and say, hey, listen, this is a Veeam or this is my SonicWall. Now, the next thing is that do they apply to them all the time? Just because I've got Veeam or I've got my SonicWall doesn't mean that they have to be applied. So there's got to be a review process going, okay, in this particular threat, for instance, the my SonicWall, if you weren't doing backup or if your devices weren't in a mysonicwall.com portal, and if they weren't doing backups, this threat doesn't apply to you. So you have to take some time to say, okay, yes, they have SonicWall, but are they set up around the threat? So we'll see a vulnerability and they'll say, hey, it's my SonicWall. Okay, it needs to make sure that they're in my SonicWall. I need to make sure that things are being, are they part of the backup process? Yes. Okay, this applies. Or maybe no, it doesn't apply, and we move on. So going through that process of, does this threat vulnerability apply is a process. Now, I would tell people, if they don't have this visibility, how do they tap into that? If they have something like a Quest, hey, help me make sure as these vulnerabilities come through that you could see them too, and that you could recognize if it's a threat for our environment or if it isn't. This is coming down really fast. The idea that used to wait for a patch to come out. The idea that says, well, when I get to patching my firewalls or when I get to patching my servers or whatever it is next month or in 90 days, the next quarter, or once every year that you do it, whatever your patching cycle is, waiting now isn't really an answer. You've really got to say, okay, I've got to now take action. I've got to identify if this threat hits me, if it impacts me, and then I got to take action. For instance, the My SonicWall, that wasn't just a patch, right? That was, you've got to do this update, and then you got to go out and reset a lot of passwords depending on how you're using that firewall. So we've had to work with people to reset a lot of VPN user ID passwords and even some of the API type of stuff besides just the console and the keys. So when you get that threat, you've got to now take into action, what do I have to do now to mitigate that threat? And again, this is something we usually take a pretty extreme action on anything, the 8 or higher. So back to that CVE rating, if it's an 8 or higher, which is usually a higher critical, we're going into this action mode with our customers, being able to identify the threat, identify the systems, what are the systems characteristics, what are the features that have to be enabled, and then do these customers have this, and then do I need to take action, or who needs to take action to correct it? So this is our part of our world now, and not just wait until the next patch. And even the patch doesn't apply in some of these. It's just not a patch like I explained there with my SonicWall. That's, we've got to go change things. We got to go in the configuration. We got to work with the end users, end devices, application teams, whatever it is, to make changes here. So big concern, there's the vulnerabilities that are coming down. They're all not just patches, so it's just not to throw a patch or I'll wait till the next patch cycle. There are things that are coming down that have to be changed, physically getting into the config and change things. And there's also risk here of that. How long do I want to wait before I make these changes? So that's how we look at the current concerns around vulnerabilities coming in. Looking at what our customers do, looking at what we have visibility to, and then taking through that action. So a pretty long-winded process there, but this stuff has to be done within like 12 to 24 hours too. When it hits these streams at an 8 or like a 9 or a 10.0, it means, hey, this is serious. That usually means they probably have some record of systems that have been compromised. It's just not a, hey, my lab guys found this or something. It's usually because somebody has identified the hole. So,
Mike, I know
does that sort of make sense there? Good.
Yeah, and there's a couple layers there, right? So, and I know, SIM services and monitoring alerts and logs is becoming more and more critical, and getting these vulnerabilities identified is becoming more and more critical. But I think there's a couple layers there that could be dangerous for folks. One of them you touched on at the beginning, the idea of kind of that alert fatigue and maybe not seeing the notifications, or just, oh, it's more noise, that kind of a thing. Like, are you, I know that was a story back in, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, a couple years ago, as far as alert fatigue. People will plug in a monitoring tool. I think you had a funny story of when you guys first started doing this from a security perspective. You asked the customer a couple of times, are you sure you want all the logs? And they said yes. And then, they basically, yeah. But like, so is that alert fatigue and that notification still a challenge? And then there's the next challenge of, okay, now what the vulnerability is, but it's more than just a patch. There's actual action that has to go into it. Which, are you seeing both of those as like equal dangers right now in the market? Is one more concerned than the other? Okay, cool, we got the alert, but they don't take action, or they're just getting hit with so much noise that it's tough to kind of see the signal there?
Well, definitely could be the alert fatigue, right? Even with us, that's why we really are cautious about. We have a security advisor message that we send out when we see these, and I just can't repeat everything that we see from every vendor that comes in through at 8.0, because there is fatigue there. I'd just be just a message relay system there. So we are aware of that fatigue. So when we send out our security advisory messages, because, hey, this is serious, right? This is something that we see within our customer environments. We've confirmed that, yeah, this is definitely real. It's not something that's, small chance from, last year or something. So I do think we do think that there is that fatigue. So that's why we don't send out every single 8.0 or 9.0 message. We do go through our process, and we are pretty selective about what we send out on the security advisor messages. So I do think that. I think it's just the visibility too, depending on what you go into the streaming systems, when you set up to get those alerts, what do you select? Do you select all of your networking equipment, all of your voice equipment, all of your applications, all of your SaaS providers, all this other stuff that could be a little overwhelming too? And then when you get into those particular alerts, it's really hard to tell too, well, which ones really do apply to me? Like on the My Sonic wall, like, can I really tune this thing that says, just if it's only underneath my Sonic wall and if I'm doing backups? Probably not. You can't get that tuned with it. So you may get everything that Sonic Wall is doing, but it may not apply to you. So you've got to go through that fatigue. Now, when you look at these alerts, you may sit there and go, oh, I know what this is like. I got to read this dang thing. I got to go in and figure out this whole thing. I got a lot going on, and this is going to take me probably about 2 or 3 hours to research. So that may just stop you from even looking at it, because you don't have 2 or 3 hours of time to look at it. But you may have to. And so how do you deal with that as those messages are like coming in constantly? So I think the combination of seeing the message, seeing which ones, how do I know if they apply to me? How do I validate it? Do I have enough time to do that? I think that's the fatigue piece. I think that's the part that says, man, this is like overwhelming at times. So anyway, because Microsoft's got its own list of things. I mean, you name it on some of these things, depending on what your applications and your vendors are, you could be overwhelmed. So I think that's the fatigue part of it. And then, of course, when you get into, seeing what you've got to do with it, validate what action really needs to be placed, because it doesn't always say, here's what you need to do exactly within my environment. It'll give you advice and some recommended steps, but how do I apply that within my environment? What does this really mean that I need to change? That's when it comes to the action that's probably more than just a patch. So does that help a little bit with that thought?
Yeah. So kind of understanding which alerts are relevant is still going to take a little bit of investment to, and time to understand what's relevant, and then kind of taking it a step further beyond just the patch cycle and the updates. Hey, what steps need to be taken to remediate this? If it's a serious concern, there are actions to be taken. For example, with the MySonic wall, backup configs for those that kind of led to a lot of things needing to be changed and updated once that patch was put in place.
Yeah, and I think the other fatigue is, it happened again, right? Yeah, I go back to the SolarWinds days. When the SolarWinds happened, maybe when CrowdStrike event took place, some of those type of things, they were like big deals. I mean, they were like lit up on CNN and everyone's talking about it, and so on and so forth. So I think the fatigue is, it's another one again.
Mm-hmm.
MySonic wall, which is kind of a big deal. I mean, you would think about, hey, here's a security company that's managing, that has a lot of firewalls. Everyone's telling everyone to put everything into the corporate portal. Rocky's the same way. All these guys have it, put it into the corporate portal. Well, that gets compromised. That's kind of a big deal. I mean, it literally got compromised. And if you're within that environment where you're backing up your firewall backups to like MySonic wall, which everyone tells you to do, by the way, man, that's pretty serious. I mean, they got into like serious user ID passwords.
Mm-hmm.
But the fatigue is, it happened again. I don't think MySonic wall wasn't paraded in front of CNN and CNBC and MSNBC and everybody else like some of those other vendors were. But so I think that's the other fatigue, is that it happened again. So what do I do? Like, this happens a lot. So who cares? You almost get like that fatigue too.
Yeah. Well, I guess part of it is it's always changing. I guess there's really no finish line here when it comes to security. There's really no silver bullets, no finish line. It's going to happen. Business is all about dealing with problems. And and this is one that people may have been able to get through a couple months or a couple of years with it, but the fatigue is, this is going to keep going. So how do I do this? How do I bring in my assets? How do I know my vulnerabilities? How do I kind of narrow this down? Who's helping us? Obviously, we're an MSP, and we do this a lot for our customers. We do this on our professional services teams too for customers. So how do you kind of put that together? How does that work? Not just for a one-time deal, but ongoing. Who's helping me keep an eye on these things? Because it's a pretty significant event with something like the MySonic wall. And unfortunately, we probably won't know the full impact because who's ever gotten everyone's user ID passwords, whoever didn't change them out, if they didn't change them out right, blah, 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 are they going to get compromised later? So it's pretty hard to tell that, but that's the threat that everyone's dealing with. Yeah.
But it is a grind. Like, you've got to, like, within our world, like I could drown our team literally to do nothing but these and not the rest of our business and the rest of our services. So we've got to make some standards saying, hey, this, do I not care about the 7.3? No, it's not that I don't care. But what can I deal with? What's everyone going to deal with? What's the significance of it? How do we put that into the system? Do I care about the 8.3 a little more? Yeah, I'm going to care about the 8.3 a little more. And then I got to execute. So if I care about it, how do I execute and how do I communicate to our customers? Who's going to be doing what? We deal with a lot of customers that they may have us do the changes or they may be doing the changes. So there's that communication. Maybe somebody's out on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks and this comes in. Our normal team that we work with on the customer side, the person's on vacation. How do we deal with it? So those are the things that we're constantly talking with our customers about, how we deal with these vulnerabilities. We probably see on the 8 to 10 that we look at anyway, that we've got our scope on, we probably see 3 to 5 of these a month that we really have to deal with. So you're going through a lot of potential vulnerabilities, a lot of situations to, okay, I've got to really push the pedal down on these 3 to 5, to like see these corrective actions through. But you need that. And some of these guys say they've got it. So if you're a customer out there or a partner out there, some of these guys say, who has this? Like, I know we could probably see if the obvious 10.0 comes up or if it hits up on CNN, somebody goes, hey, do we have this? And then there's all the other stuff that's coming through. So I would say work with your partners, work with internally if the team's doing it internally, and just understand, how do who has this? How does this work? We help out customers in multiple different ways. They could get up on our security advisor messages. We could help with them to go through their situation. We've got talks. We got all sorts of different ways that we help with customers here on it. But it's one of those processes that has developed, and we've really had to hone in here about what we care about for us internally and what we care about for our clients on the visibility of the assets that we see, which is a key thought there, the visibility of the assets that we see. And so as a business, what are their assets, or what are their tools? What are their software packages? What's the stuff there that they got to worry about? That's been out there preached for a long time. But the payout is that if you get that documented well, then this practice becomes a lot easier. So you get something that says, this is what I really care about. People will ask, hey, does it matter if I got 5 or 6 different networking vendors involved in my network? Well, not really. It will probably all pass TCP/IP. But when you come to operations and critical patches, you're going to keep up with 5 or 6 of them. You're going to keep up with all these different possibilities. That's probably a better question to ask when you think about that 5 or 6 vendors there.
Yeah, speaking of kind of the vendor, transitions, another thing I know we were chatting about that we've been seeing a lot of is, end of life, end of support changes coming down the pipe. So like in that example you mentioned about, okay, I got 5 different network components in my environment, right? Is that a problem? And no, it's going to pass traffic, but you maybe have, a router here or a core switch here or a firewall here that are all on different end of life, end of support schedules. And there are some significant ones coming up. There's some key IT components that a lot of people have in their environment. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah. Well, I think there's some myth busters here, I guess, if you want to call it that. You used to be able to keep a product for 5 to 7 years, right? That was sort of the cycle, and it'll go end of life after 7 years or something. And, life, you do a refresh or whatever you want to call it after 7 years. Now that's completely changed. You may get 5 or 7 years, but they're not being updated. They may give you security patches. But with the SaaS world coming in and with the cloud service providers, they're talking about, we're going to change. We got to keep up with it now. Like if somebody has to be patched, it's got to be now. And if your systems aren't really part of that now movement, they may not work. So the idea that I could run things without or with end of life, end of support, and keep doing that, some change is going to come in and it's going to bite you. So definitely the idea that 5, 6, 7 years, I could go ahead and I don't have to worry about it. This is now coming down to probably 2 to 3 years. So when you look at your end of life, end of support, it's just not one thing anymore. Like we talked about the multiple vendors, it's going to matter. Like right now, tons of people are probably working on Windows 10, right? And we're well past the October 14th date. They may have gotten, there's an extension program that Microsoft put out there to extend support for the next year or two, but you have to buy it. It's not free. So how long do you deal with that? How long do you deal with end of life, end of support there? Do you know all of your applications that are end of life, end of support? Narrowing that window down from 5 to 7 years to 2 to 3 years means you got to keep a sharper eye on this. When is it going to go end of life? Because nowadays, when I change something out, if I've got to get off of Windows, Server OS 2019s to here like soon. Matter of fact, it's just security patches now, but 2016's end of life, 2019's end of support type of a thing. So how do I get off those? It is still difficult to get off those tools. I still am running. We still are working with customers that are even on like VMware 6 and 7. So they're on 6 and 7. Hardware's not even supporting 6 and 7 anymore. They're trying to get to 8. Their hardware doesn't support 8. And then they're trying to get off of, try to get to 2025, and you're going to put that on top of V6 or V7 for VMware. I mean, that's where people are really getting into some serious binds here. And it's not just, operationally speaking, it's the security stuff that we just talked about, right? How do I keep all that stuff patched besides just operationally working through? So big deal. If you go to a cloud provider, right, the other side of that is you're on their bus. When they got to change tires, they're changing tires. When it's ready to pull over and get gas, that's when they pull over and get gas, not whenever you think it's time to pull over and get gas. You're on their bus. So that's the other side of it, is that I'm going to go to a SaaS provider, not have to worry about this. Well, that's good. That means you got to worry about when they change their end of life, end of support, or they change because of some security issue or new features. You're dealing with it. And what I'm seeing right now in that world is about 2 to 3 versions back. So they may help you on the software side, keep you for 2 to 3 versions back. And you got to talk with them going, is that like going from like version 8 to version 7 versus 6? Or are you talking 8.5 to 8.4 to 8.3? So that's the stuff that people are throwing at for this end of life, end of support stuff that you got to get off of, or they're not going to support you. So I've moved from hardware, software, I've added the cloud providers in there, and I've added the SaaS providers in there. And now you got to worry about all these end of life, end of support, upgrade challenges that you're going to have. So it really does build out the idea that you don't own all this stuff anymore. So it's not all up to you. It's just not for your integrations. It's integrations with these other platforms, puts another dimension onto end of life, end of support. It's almost like that stack management. How are you going to do with that? And knowing every stack that comes through, you're going to have to worry about, hey, do you support this? So, hey, I don't support Windows 10 anymore. Oh, well, I got to be on Windows 10. Not an old problem, but hey, I've got to now run this on top of somebody's VDI. I'm running cloud PC. How does that work? Well, they're not going to do that anymore. Okay, that's going to make a change. So it's this ripple effect as you go through these changes. So we've been trying to keep up with it ourselves. Internally, we have to worry about our own stack and our own end of life things. I meet with people once every week to go through our stack and our customer services. I look at major vendors when they go end of life, Microsoft, Cisco, those are pretty major vendors. What are their end of life stories? What are their end of life stories? How do we support that? It may not be our product or our software, but we're on the hook to support somebody's desktops or somebody's patching or something. And the software package is end of life now, i.e. Windows 10. So how do you deal with that? And those are the things that we're working through our customers and our vendors with about how do you support that? That's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, that's great, Mike. Yeah. So like, everyone can step away from the sharp objects right now. It's everything's going to be okay. But the idea of that kind of on the, whatever path you choose, whether it's cloud or on-prem, there's a couple different trade-offs that, we're very, very aware of it, right? We've provided platform as a service for a long time. We've helped organizations upgrade and refresh their components, their core networking, their systems, things like that. But there's always that trade-off. And like you said, they make support two versions back on a cloud hosted environment versus, a legacy platform that's, having version control issues between hardware and software support. And you kind of get into this, people can tie themselves into a Gordian knot on how to get through that in their upgrade cycle. So it definitely helps, right? Just identifying those challenges, having that reality conversation about what people are dealing with, and then there's a couple different courses folks can take to to get on a path. But similar to the critical vulnerabilities, that path doesn't stop. Like it doesn't. There's no end to it. It just keeps going.
Yeah. It used to be not quite a big deal, when HP when their servers were end of life or Cisco products were end of life, it wasn't a big deal. It's like 7 years. We'll be able to work through it. Wasn't that big of a deal. Well, all that stuff has changed a lot more. So yeah, definitely have to have a good strategy. Now we send out notices on these too. We'll send out security advisor messages or risk management messages too. So we'll talk about the risk of some of these things, options, what people are dealing with options with, how do they sort of work through it. So yeah, it's definitely, there's definitely a lot of like communication taking place about it. And then how do you need our help to work through it? So good stuff.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Mike. Paul, how we doing on, I think we got doing okay on time. How we doing on any questions coming in from the chat or anything we need to address with the team here?
No questions from the chat right now. So if you have questions, please let us know in the chat. But people who registered did have questions in the registration. So we'll go through those. Mike and Adam, can you customize alerts for customers?
Yes, you can look at the platforms, understand what those alerts, what are those vendors. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, do you care about a CV7, CV8, CV10, so on and so forth? What vendors are really going to be critical? I tell people to start with the ones that really mean a lot to you. What are some of your core, your core applications and your core platforms? Start with something that you could be successful with. Work through a process of when it comes in, work through a process of, are you just asking for the message? Or are you asking for a verification? Or are you asking help for corrective action? So, working through those all can be customized.
Okay, perfect. And can customers just get alert messages?
Probably from a security advisor with Quest. Yes. So if somebody doesn't want to hear all of our other marketing stuff, which is usually really good content, Darcy does a great job on making relative content here. If they just want to see security advisor messages, we could just send them our security advisor messages. And those are the ones that we send out. Like I said, 3 to 5 times a month, we'll send something out. It's not on everybody's customized system that we just talked about. The ones that we send out for our security or risk management are the ones that we are seeing that are critical to our customers and to our platforms. So.
Great.
Yeah, and we have a great, there's actually a great list on our website. I don't know, Darcy or Justin, if you want to pop that into the chat for the team here, anyone wants to snag it. It's under our resources tab on our website. It's a great list of, Mike mentioned, we kind of tier out like, okay, these are very, very relevant to the user community and to our clients. There's a great resource tab on the website there that kind of goes through every month for about the last couple quarters usually, just to kind of take a look at them if you want to take a look at that type of content that's available for you.
Thanks, Adam.
Okay,
I just
perfect.
dropped that in the chat, the link to that page.
Awesome. Thanks, Darcy.
Great. Another question is, what is the latest on endpoint security or what is the latest on endpoint security and UEM/MDM?
It's the latest, as maybe the latest tools or something, or the latest capabilities you're thinking, Paul?
I think so.
Capabilities, yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. Okay. So probably the latest is they're trying to do more. So yeah, look at we are seeing some of the EDR tools and some of the MDR type of tools. We are seeing those coming through, trying to be more, more manageable and maybe more feature rich, if you will. So an example would be is that, hey, can I look at my EDR tool, go out and see all the XYZ versions of ABC application that I need to find out? Or can I go out and block if I see all this stuff? How do I do some of this stuff? Or how does this stuff report? Some of these EDR tools are bringing on their own SIMs. They're going to, be reporting other things besides maybe what the EDR tool's on too. So, those are the things that we're probably seeing some of that stuff expansion. So getting into the EDR tools, probably getting into a little bit more of the vulnerability management thoughts. So we are seeing some of those things, policies, can it block it? Can it take action? What are the actions that could take? I haven't seen them do patching on them yet. So they're just mostly tell me about it or block it mode here, but not necessarily take the action to apply something like apply a patch or, or to apply like a new configuration. So.
Got it. Okay, so final question. It's a little bit of a novel. Appreciate the question. So sit back. It's going to take a second. Get comfortable. CrowdStrike marketing literature says that they can't, or the CrowdStrike. Let me start again. CrowdStrike marketing literature says that they can do remediation with their endpoint, but security resources at master agencies say you can't. I don't know if they're doing this out of loyalty to their partnerships because remediation can be extremely lucrative, or if they really believe that the endpoint can't do remediation. Looking at CrowdStrike's marketing literature, they definitely say they can do a lot of remediation.
So a couple things, whatever remediation is, right? That could be like block something. So that may be a form of that. Now, CrowdStrike does get into more than just EDR and MDR, right? They do have services that CrowdStrike, again, as you read between the lines, that tea leaves of CrowdStrike, they do have a service that their people can get in and do configuration changes. It's a lot of money. So depending on the level of service you're buying from CrowdStrike and the marketing page you're looking for and how far up the tier that you want to go with spending money with CrowdStrike, those are all options. But it's just not because they have like one version of something, right? It's some sort of a Falcon, whatever service that they're probably going to have to buy to do everything.
Okay, perfect. Great. I don't have any more questions. Guys, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, Paul, so the only thing, just to follow up on Mike's question there, I think that question sounded like they mentioned technology service distributor or one of our master agents. That might be one of our partners. We can definitely follow up with you directly on that specifically. If there are any other questions or if you have anything else you'd like, follow up on, partners@questsys.com, or you can contact us here at any of these different contact methods. Something we always like to highlight, especially since we're on a security kind of conversation right now. If you ever need emergency support, 24/7, you can call the 800 number listed right there, or very, very simple, 2 letters, ir@questsys.com. In the bottom right-hand side of your screen here, ir@questsys.com is emergency response capabilities for you, for a partner, for a client, for someone you're associated with. If you need emergency services, you can help out, and we can help out 24/7 and get the team engaged to help. If you're interested in looking at any of the advisories we've had in the past, they are recorded there on that link. And if you're interested in receiving those security advisory notifications, the QR code there is available if you'd like to, just complete that form, and you can get those notifications from our team anytime, like Mike mentioned, a high-rated CVE comes out. So.
Perfect. You're making my job very easy. You covered everything, so that's fantastic. Our goal is to do these every month, so we look forward to bringing you more insight next month as well. If you have questions when you register, please ask. We definitely want to answer and help you out as best we can. So, guys, Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody. Have a great day.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Dave.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.